So yes, something about myself. I work for MACE, it is construction consultancy company, working at an international level. I'm also ambassador of the UK BIM Alliance, that is a community in the UK that is promoting BIM as business as usual. And also as a part of volunteer activities, I'm part of the BIM Excellence Initiative. I don't know if you know about this, but I suggest to all of you to have a look. And also there is a tool that is available online for free, that is the BIM Dictionary. Actually, it has not been translated in Slovakian yet, but you know, it's something that you can evaluate in the future. And it's been translated in 27 languages so far. So you can find, of course, in English. And especially if you're new or maybe your colleagues are not familiar with that, then you can use, because as you know, with BIM there are a lot of acronyms and they come, so it can help you for training purposes. And also part of the SEN committee, where I lead a group of experts on the level of information need, and some are also here with us today. And also I created this community of Italians that work in the UK. I want to start with something personal. So these are my holidays in 2018. I was in Indonesia, and you can see very nice place. And you know, I was having my dreams holidays, and you know, also similar to what some of you also experience. And how I select the place where I was staying, so my hotel. So of course I look at, you know, websites such as booking.com, and I look for the reviews, and you know, check the island. This was a small island, Gilin Travangan, and I like, you know, there was the swimming pool and all these kind of things. And so yes, then I select this, the price was good, and so on. So what happened a night where I was there is that a very terrible earthquake arrived, and I'm live just you know, in a very, you know, it's almost a miracle that I'm here speaking with you today. Because actually the structure where I was safe, but of course I didn't know, because I selected my hotel based on the review, you know, it was near the seaside and so on. But around me, all the other buildings fall down, and instead my hotel is still there, fortunately. So why information management matters, and why also what Lars was mentioning before is so important, because it's all about us. It's all about the people that we care. It's all about the next generation and so on. And if you look at, again, this image, that was my hotel here. Actually, there was a water tank next to my you know, place, actually with, you know, a water tank in this tower of concrete, and fortunately that didn't fall where I was sleeping. And instead 500 people died. But, you know, we don't have access to the information if the place where we are safe, you know, if maintenance has been done. You know, also, for example, if you choose the school for your kids, your house, also the place where I here, it's difficult to have this information. And most of the time it's because we don't ask, we don't collect, and we don't have access. So this is something that we need to work all together in order to make our places better, and why information is important. So this is not just in other countries. This is happening, of course, also in Europe, the Grenfell Tower, the bridge in Italy, and so on. So it's really common. So how many of you are expert on BIM? They believe that are expert on BIM? Don't be shy. No? Come on. Someone more? Okay, that is good. So I will speak about this concept of LOD, and then the level of information need. So all of us, we are familiar with the concept of scale. So when we do drawings, 1 to 50, 1 to 100, are you familiar with that? A little bit more? Yeah? Okay, you're very shy, okay. Also people from online, you can also answer. So the way that we BIM, we define the information is with this LOD topic, okay, LOD concept. So the level of development, the level of detail. So we want to specify how much information from a geometrical point of view and how much alphanumerical information, some properties we include in our models, and how much we can rely on that. So for example, in the US, there is this beamform specification that is quite popular, and you can see that level 100, there is a lot of detail in geometry, but it is a placeholder. So we just care that there is a chair in the space. We don't care that it's particular product that we're going to buy and to install at the end. Instead, when we progress in the design and in our project, then we have more reliable information that we can trust. Okay, so this is the topic that has been used in the past 10 years on how we specify how we want our models. But when I started to deal with BIM, I was not really satisfied with that, because I think that as an industry we can do better. So how the industry is currently asking for requirements, so the clients, but also designer for the contractor and so on, is using usually those tables where we list all the different elements of our project with different phases, so schematic design, detail design, construction, and then we put a number against that. So we would like foundation, LOD 3, or LOD 300, it depends also on the countries. For example, in Italy, we have letters from A to G and so on. So I did this work of mapping also the different way that this is mentioned in 2016. And then what I was asking to experts, some of you say that you are expert on BIM, is that if I ask which is this level of development of this door and this space, what you will say? Actually, is that even if here there are really good experts also at European and international level, we don't have a common way of describing and asking for that particular information. So that is an issue, because if we cannot specify the requirements in the right way, then it's difficult to get the information that we want and to make that intelligence part that I was mentioning at the beginning, to have reliable information that can help us, okay? So the level of information need is a framework that helps us to avoid the waste of information, too much and too little information, because also at the moment, I don't know if any of you do, energy analysis. And when we receive the model, also for structural analysis, you need to clean a lot because you receive too much information. Actually, there is not that parameter that you need. It's so frustrating. So this framework is helping us to define and to receive just the information that we want at the right time by the right people. And also to enable this machine checking and automation that the technology is already there. And the definition is a framework that defines the quality, quantity, and granularity of information requirements. And the reason we say that, I try to avoid the acronym is because I'm not originally, as has been said from the UK, but the acronym also in English has a bad meaning. You can search online, the meaning of LOIN. But the point is that we want to move away from the LOD number, and we want to explain that that is a framework when you need to define more information, as I will show you in a second. So where you can find information regarding this level of information need. So first of all, this concept has been included for the first time in the international standard ISO 19615, particularly part 1 and 2, but also there is in part 3. And also this is also a Slovakian standard, so it's also your standard. Also, there is a guidance that has been co-authored with Emma Hooper for the UK BIM Alliance. So it's available for free to everyone, so you can have a look. And there are different guidance on the implementation of the ISO 19650. And also there is this standard that is specific for the level of information need. That is the 17412 part 1. And as has been mentioned, we're also working on part 2 and 3 with different experts in different countries, including also Slovakian experts. So you can get in touch also with them if you're interested to know more. So what is in this standard regarding the level of information need? So first of all, what is new, I think that you understood, we don't use these labels as a starting point. But we start to define the purpose first, so why we need information, because as has been said, if you need to do energy analysis or you need to do structural analysis, then you need different geometries and different properties and alphanumerical information and different documentation as well. And so that is the first starting point. This is an example. If you need to do cost analysis, this is just regarding alphanumerical information, you might need at a particular point of time or your project, maybe the cost value, the cost schedule, the cost item, the material, and so on. If you need to do thermal design, then you might need different information. And it is something that all of you as designer, engineers, and also contractor, you know which information you need, but actually you don't standardize or you don't have really a proper database where you specify these. So it's not something that is completely new, it's just a way that we use standardization in order to use those information. So who needs to define the level of information needs? So usually start with the client. So then the client needs to tell us why they want BIM. So it's not enough to say, I want BIM or I want BIM according to this standard. So it's really important that they are a little bit more specific. But I know that now you are asking yourself, but actually, Marzia, my clients is not so advanced, they don't know even what is BIM, and so on. So that is not a problem. You can act as an advisor for them. And also this can be a service that you can offer in order to help them to specify their requirements, especially at the beginning of this transition. And then you can also use this framework in order, for example, if you are an architect, to ask information to geotechnical designer or structural engineers and so on. So each of us, we ask information to others during the design and in general the construction processes. And when you needed to define the level of information needs, so every time there is an appointment, okay, so that you need to ask for information. And then you can then cascade these in your supply chain, of course. So there are three main parts. One is the geometrical information, so how the graphical representation look like. Then there are the alphanumerical information that has been also presented before. They are so important because most of the time this is really driving also the operation and maintenance after construction. So we include those information in our facility management systems. And also the documentation is also important if we need to achieve our different purposes. I think that most of us, we played this game when we were kids to put the right shape in the right, the right object in the right shape. I think that, you remember that. So that is really to, this framework is really to define the right shape so that we can fit the information that we want at the right time. It seems quite easy, so I think that all of us, we can make it. This is actually the level of information need framework, and don't worry, I will also show you some examples and some tools and so on. But the idea is that you can also do these, using paper, or you can do Excel. But of course, if you use some digital tools and some databases, is better, isn't it? Okay. So first of all, there are some prerequisites. So you need to define the purpose, why you need the information. So do you want to do accessibility analysis? Do you want to do scheduling? Do you want to do health and safety on site? Why you want to use your information, and in particular your model for? There are hundreds, different ways of using the model, not just 3D, 4D, whatever, that also I don't like because they're too generic. But you need to define this purpose. Then you need to define when you need the information, because maybe for the same purpose, for the cost, for example, you need a different amount of information and geometrical information in different point of time, isn't it? So at the beginning that you know a little bit about your project, you just have few information that is relevant, and then probably you increase. Also, who needs to provide the information, to check the information, and the object. So the object is quite generic. It can be the entire building or the entire infrastructure. At the beginning, we don't know which elements we are going to install. Still, we don't have the project. So we can define our requirements at building level. Then we can define our information, for example, for MEP at system level, because we actually won't define maybe all the information, for the single elements, but then for the ventilation system. So we want to have some properties and so on. So these objects really depends on your work breakdown structure in different phases, okay? So it's not really that you need to define always the information for all the objects. Of course, then it maybe will come later on in the process. And then you can see here that there is the geometrical information, the detail, the dimensionality. You want information in 2D, 3D, as a line, as a point. The location, is it relative or absolute? Do you want the geolocation, or you just care that the chair is in the space? You don't care that actually the chair is geolocated in that particular place. The appearance is symbolic, hot and cold water, red and blue, or you want the really, photorealistic representation and so on. So you need to specify, because as you know, there is a cost to create those information. And also the parametric behavior, how the geometry change and can be modified during the process. Alphanumerical information, there are already some standards that they define how to specify the information. Is really the list of the different attributes and properties that you need. And then the documentation. So think about that you want to use BIM for building permits, then maybe you need also to have the actually document signed. Or maybe you need the photos, or you need the drawings, and so on. This is an example of the prerequisites. So you can use, for example, the BIM Excellence Model Uses table to define the different uses of the model. Is a list that is available for free in the website, so I really recommend you have a look. The when in different countries, there are different ways of defining the stages. In the UK, for example, there are the RIBA stages, but you can define the one that you want. The actors, also there are standardized way in order to define who is, requiring the information, and also the object as well. There are different way and standardized way to define this. This is not, of course, the FC is not just the only one, but just to give you an example. And then, of course, you can read the standards in more detail. If you want me to ask me a question, feel free to do so. I'm here today regarding all the geometrical, alphanumerical, and the documentation in more detail. Here is a very, an example. I know that the text is short, but if you need to do accessibility analysis, for example, during the detailed design, you just need to know the direction of the opening of the door. You need maybe to know the color because you want to see for accessibility, but maybe you don't care about the cost, or maybe you don't care about the manufacturer. So it's really important to define the information that you need in that particular point of time, and also the height of the handle, because to know if it's the right height that you can open the door. This is another example for fire extinguishers. For example, during the different design phase, for the space, you want a simple volume, you want that in 3D, you want to have absolute with the coordinated point, you want the appearance symbolic, maybe with the color that is based on that particular space, and then the parametric behavior is really not required, and then there are the list of the parameters and alphanumerical information that you want, and then also, for example, you want to have a escape route report in order to do this. This is another example regarding if you want to do visualization, the architect should provide the site, the wall, the window, and then for each of that you say maybe the geometry is not required, but then I want to have the site type, the address, maybe instead for the wall I want to have a simplified volume, and so and so on. So I think that you understood the process to define the level of information need. You can use different tools. This is one example. There is, for example, BIMQ that you can use to create and define the different attributes that you want in a particular phase for a particular purpose. For example, the color, the fire exit, and so on. And you can assign to the particular point of time so that you can then filter, and then you can then transfer this information, for example, in your tools. So you can transfer these in ArchiCAD and in Revit, so you can have already the information that you need. And I'm going to finish now. So that you can see that is a standardized and better way to find. But also there is, for example, CoBuilder is also working on a tool. So now the market, you have different possibilities. So then you can check the information, for example, in Simple Beam or in Solibri, so that you can check that actually what you ask, actually it is in the model. So this workflow is already happening. So, is all for you to use. And also, you can use other tools, such as, for example, Airtable, in order to create your requirements. So this also, most of the time, is for free. So you can have a look to the UKBIM Alliance website, where you can find an example of this implementation. So that is everything about myself. Just to summarize, so the level of information needed is different from the level of definition development. You need to define why you need the information first, when you need those, and who needs to provide the information, and what is your breakdown structure associated. I recommend, at least at the beginning, not to abbreviate. It's not that important, but we want to move away from the LOD. And also to remember that there is this alphanumerical, geometrical, and documentation. So thank you very much for your attention, and I just want to say that people that are starting to implement and design companies to implement this approach already had an increase on their services, almost 50% and so on. So don't wait to go in this digital way. So thank you very much.